I moved into my new house a few weeks ago, looking for a fresh start after my breakup. The place felt cozy, but it was old. I thought that would give it character. The first few nights were peaceful, but then everything changed. On my second night, I started hearing a faint tapping against the walls. It sounded like someone drumming their fingers lightly. I paused. I thought it might be the old plumbing. I brushed it off. I turned off the lights and tried to sleep, but that sound lingered in my mind. My heart raced a bit, but I figured it was nothing. As the nights went by, the tapping turned into scratching. It felt different. I lay there trying to ignore it, but the scratching wouldn't stop. What was it? The noise kept creeping into my thoughts. I kept thinking, maybe I should check it out. On top of that, my blinds started moving. I had a clear view of the yard, but they shifted as if someone was peeking through. I told myself it was just the wind, but my neck was prickling with fear. Something was off. One evening after a long day at work, I went outside for some fresh air. I wanted to shake off the unease. That's when I saw something. A shadow darted across my yard. My breath caught. I thought I was imagining things. I stepped closer to the edge of the porch. "Hello," I called out. Silence answered me. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. No one was there. My heart raced again, and I felt silly for being scared. When I came back inside, I locked the door and tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe the neighbors were messing with me. I really wasn't sure. That night, the scratching returned, louder and more frantic. I covered my head with a pillow, hoping it would stop. My heart pounded in my ears. The next morning, I found my blinds wide open. I always kept them shut. I felt nervous and uneasy. I thought I saw a figure slip past the window, but when I looked, it was just emptiness. I didn't want to stay there, but I didn't know where else to go. Then came the worst part. I lay in bed, exhausted after working late. I suddenly felt a presence in the room. My breath hitched. I froze. Then, I heard it, a whisper that chilled me to the core. "Let me in." I jumped up, my heart racing. I flipped on the lights, but there was nothing there. Last night, I thought I saw a figure outside my window again. I'm still shaken. I don't understand what happened in that house. Was it my overactive mind? I'm not sure. All I know is I can't shake the feeling that something is still lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to let my guard down. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. I hadn't slept well, and the unnerving events from the night before were still fresh in my mind. I decided that enough was enough. I needed to find out what was going on in this house. So, I made a plan. After work, I would go to the local library and dig into the history of my new home. At the library, I browsed the old newspaper archives. The smell of dust and old paper was calming, but the stories I uncovered weren't. My heart dropped as I stumbled upon an article from decades ago about a fire that had broken out in my house. It had been tragic. One family lost everything, including a young girl. The details were sparse, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I took a seat at a nearby table and tried to gather my thoughts. Was the girl's spirit still here? Was she trying to get my attention? I felt foolish thinking these things, but the previous nights kept replaying in my mind. The whispering, the scratching. I couldn't dismiss it anymore. On my way home, I tried to convince myself it wasn't a big deal, just an old house with an old story. Maybe I was being paranoid. But as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something strange. My front door, which I had locked before leaving, was slightly ajar. Panic surged through me. I stepped closer, my heart racing. Who had been in my house? I cautiously stepped inside, my eyes scanning every corner. The air felt thick with tension. I called out, "Hello?" But my voice echoed back at me, alone. The house was empty. I moved slowly through the rooms, checking for signs of forced entry, but it seemed unchanged. Yet an uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. Then I noticed the living room. My bookshelves had been disturbed. A few of my books were scattered on the floor, open to different pages. I froze, my stomach twisting. This was impossible. I didn't leave them like that. I picked up a book, my hands trembling. It was one about supernatural phenomena. I had flipped through it the night before. Why was it open again? Suddenly, the blinds in the back room flapped violently as if a gust of wind had blown through, even though the windows were shut. I jumped back, startled. I turned to leave when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "She wants to play." My breath caught in my throat. Who was this? My hands shook as I tried to process the message. My instincts screamed at me to get out of the house. I bolted for the front door, but as I swung it open, I hesitated. At the edge of my yard stood a figure, shrouded in shadow. Just as quickly as I spotted it, it vanished into the darkness. I stumbled backward, fear coursing through me. What was happening? I rushed outside, eyes darting everywhere. I had to face whatever was haunting me, but I didn't know how. And as I turned to look back at the house, the scratching started again. I spun around at the sound, my instincts urging me to flee. The scratching filled the air, sharper this time, like nails raking down a chalkboard. I strained to see what might be causing it, my heart pounding. Nothing was visible behind me, but the noise seemed to come from the living room. Swallowing hard, I took a step backward. The shadows danced under the porch light, and for a split second, I thought I saw a figure in one of the windows. I blinked, and it was gone. My mind raced. Should I go back in? What if something was already inside? I felt a swell of anger mixed with fear. No more running. I had to face this, whatever it was. I took a deep breath and turned toward the house, my feet leading me inside again. The scratching intensified, echoing through the silence. I reached for the light switch but hesitated. What if the darkness revealed something I wasn't ready to see? In a moment of bravery or desperation, I flicked the switch. Light flooded the room, but it did little to calm my nerves. The scratching stopped immediately, replaced by an eerie stillness. I scanned the room, noting the disarray of the books scattered on the floor. It felt like a taunt, mocking me. That's when I noticed something moving in the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, and there it was, a small, shadowy figure darting past the doorway, giggling softly. My breath hitched. Was it real? My rational mind pushed against the notion, but the feeling was too strong. I wasn't alone. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound firm. My voice trembled. I took a step toward the sound, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. I felt a tugging at my pant leg. I looked down in shock. A toy, a dusty old doll, lay at my feet, the kind that looked like it had been forgotten for years. Its glassy eyes seemed to watch me. I swallowed hard, resisting the urge to run again. A surge of curiosity mixed with fear compelled me to pick it up. The moment my fingers grazed the doll's cool skin, I felt a rush of cold air. It blasted through the room, causing the lights to flicker. I dropped the doll in a panic, stumbling back as it landed with a soft thud. Before I could react, the lights went out, leaving only a sliver of moonlight filtering through the window. My heart raced, and I felt the world tilt around me. I braced against the wall, straining my ears for sounds. The giggling returned, closer this time, almost right next to me. Then everything went dark. I couldn't see a thing. I fumbled for my phone, but I realized it was still on the table. I was trapped, engulfed in darkness, the air growing colder. I needed to get out. I forced my legs to move, but each step seemed heavy, as if the shadows were pulling me back. Just as I reached the doorway, I felt something brush against my arm, a soft whisper echoing in my ears. "Play with me." My stomach twisted as I finally understood. I wasn't just haunted. Something in this house wanted me to join it. I stumbled back as the whisper lingered in my ears. The chill from the darkness seeped into my bones. I could feel fear coursing through me, but I forced myself to move. My heart pounded louder than the silence around me. I took a shaky breath and stepped outside the doorway. The moonlight guided me, casting long shadows across the floor. But just as I made it into the living room, I heard the giggling again. This time, it seemed to float through the air like smoke. I turned quickly, half expecting to see the tiny shadow darting away again, but there was nothing but the faint outline of furniture. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself. I needed to find a way to break through this nightmare. The front door was locked, but I had left the back door open when I tried to escape earlier. Moving fast, I made my way toward the rear of the house. Each creak of the floorboards sent my heart racing. The memories of the doll's cold touch echoed in my mind. Why had I picked it up? Why hadn't I just run? I reached the kitchen, feeling slightly more at ease. A few obstacles to navigate through before I could reach the exit. When I reached the back door, I yanked it open, but a low, disapproving hum filled the room. I froze. The whisper returned again, now filled with a sense of urgency. Stay. Play. Panic surged within me. I slammed the door shut and turned back to the kitchen. That was when I saw it, a flash of movement in the corner. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, and slowly took a step back into the light. A strange glow seemed to bathe the corner near the pantry. Compelled by an unseen force, I approached it. As I got closer, I saw the outline of several dolls lined up on the pantry shelf. Their faces appeared twisted, grotesque even. I stumbled back, my breath quickening. There had been only one doll a moment before, and now there were more? A cold sweat broke over my forehead. I knew I hadn't brought any of those dolls into this house. Terror gripped me, choking out coherent thoughts. I turned around to flee, but the sound of soft footsteps halted me in my tracks. Stay with us. Frantically, I scanned the room for an escape. My mind raced. I was no longer alone. They weren't going to let me leave this place. I felt the air weigh heavily, a mixture of anticipation and dread wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. I darted toward the hallway when my foot caught on something, sending me sprawling to the ground. I turned, and there it was again. The first doll, the one I had dropped, now staring blankly at me from the floor. I grabbed it instinctively, clutching it tightly as I scrambled to my feet. That's when I saw them. The dolls in the pantry were not merely sitting still anymore. They were watching me, their glassy eyes glinting in the dim light. I needed to act fast. I had to understand what this was all about before it consumed me entirely. The giggling crescendoed, a chorus of tiny voices blending together into a haunting melody. My stomach knotted. A thought pierced through my racing mind. I knew I had to confront whatever was in this house, or I'd become just like them. I took a deep breath, debating my next move. Suddenly, I noticed the front door slowly creaking open. It seemed like a chance to escape, but the feeling in my gut told me it wasn't just an opportunity. It was a trap. I froze, staring into the darkness beyond the threshold. Then the whispering began again, louder this time, echoing through the air. Join us. Forever. I stood in the kitchen, frozen, my heart racing as the laughter morphed into a distorted chant. The dolls were quiet now, but I could feel their presence like a weight in the room. My mind was racing, trying to grasp what was happening. Why were there more dolls? Then, as if sensing my confusion, the voices escalated. Join us. Forever. I shook my head, trying to block it out. This wasn't happening. I couldn't allow it to twist my reality. I turned back to the pantry, keenly aware of each step I took. The dolls showed no sign of moving, their lifeless faces hauntingly still, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they were taunting me. Gathering my courage, I approached them. Maybe I needed to confront this horror. Maybe understanding was my only hope. The first doll I had found still clutched tightly in my hands felt colder than before. I took a deep breath and asked, "What do you want?" For a moment, silence fell. I could hear my own heartbeat drumming loudly in my ears. Suddenly, the pantry door creaked open. A sliver of darkness beckoned me forward. I knew better not to follow. I was terrified. Stay. Play. The chorus of voices floated through the air again. But this time, there was a rhythm to it, like a perverse lullaby. I felt an overwhelming urge to join them, to be part of whatever was waiting inside. I gripped the doll harder, the fabric scratching against my fingers. Suddenly, the chilling sound of little footsteps tapped down the hallway behind me. I turned, my breath hitching. It wasn't just an illusion. A small shadow moved, darting in and out of the moonlight, making its way toward me. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I was rooted to the spot, staring wide-eyed as the shadow approached. I could see a face breaking through the darkness, a child's face smiling eerily wide, framed by long, tangled hair. "Play with us," she said, her voice sweet but laced with something sinister. "No," I shouted, stepping back. But there was nowhere to go. The pantry behind me seemed deeper, darker, almost alive. I felt trapped, and my mind raced with panic. "I just want to leave." The laughter grew more intense, as if they were feeding off my fear. "You can't leave. You have to play." The girl's smile widened further as she beckoned me closer. Then I noticed something on the floor. A discarded piece of cloth lay near my feet, something I hadn't seen before. My eyes narrowed as I leaned down to examine it. It was a tiny, torn dress, similar to what the dolls wore. That's when the room felt like it tilted. The air shifted, pressing in around me. The dolls began to vibrate, their eyes flashing with a glow that seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat. I felt drawn to them, the urge to touch them overwhelming. In that moment, clarity struck me. It wasn't just about confronting whatever this was. I had to make a choice. Would I play along, risk losing myself to whatever dark game they had in store? Or would I resist until I figured a way out? "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the chaos. Before I could get an answer, the shadows around me deepened, swallowing the room in darkness. Then everything went dark. I gasped as I stumbled forward into the darkness, the weight of the air pressing down on me. It felt like I was falling, spiraling into a void. My heart raced, pounding in my chest. Was I losing consciousness? Moments later, a bright flash erupted, momentarily illuminating the surroundings. I blinked, squinting against the sudden light. I found myself in a different room, still within the confines of what must be my house. The air was thick with dust, and the walls were lined with peeling wallpaper. Faded portraits hung crookedly. People I didn't recognize stared down at me with hollow eyes. Confusion washed over me. Had I been transported? I glanced around, feeling the weight of the doll still in my hand. It was alive with a strange energy, as if it had been pulled into this eerie place with me. "Is anyone here?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence answered. The shadows in the corners shifted, but I couldn't tell if it was my imagination playing tricks on me. Then I noticed something gleaming on the floor. I knelt down, my heartbeat echoing in the stillness as I reached for it. It was a small key, rusted but intricate. A sense of urgency washed over me. Where could it lead? Before I could ponder my next move, the laughter returned, this time echoing in the corners of the room, filling it with a haunting resonance. "You found it," they taunted, the voices weaving in and out like a twisted symphony. "Now you can play. What do you want me to do?" I yelled, desperation clawing at my throat. "Stop this." They didn't respond. Instead, the portraits seemed to shift in their frames, the figures now closer, their eyes more pronounced. I could feel them watching, judging, and it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I rose to my feet, gripping the key tightly. It felt cold against my skin, but it also sparked a hint of defiance in me. There had to be a reason I was brought here. Maybe it was a clue to end this madness. A door caught my eye. It was slightly ajar, leading into another darkened room. I approached cautiously, glancing back over my shoulder at the looming portraits. With every step toward the door, the laughter grew louder, the voices merging into a cacophony of invitations. "Come play. Come play." I pushed the door open and peered inside. My breath hitched at the sight that greeted me, a small, dim room filled with even more dolls, far more than I had seen before. They were all different sizes, some meticulously crafted and others poorly made, but each wore that same unnervingly joyful expression. In the center of the room was a single larger doll sitting on a wooden chair, adorned in a beautiful dress, her eyes fixed on me. Was she the leader? The sense of dread intensified. I could almost hear the heartbeat of the dolls, synchronized and alive. I knew I had to act fast. With my trembling hands, I raised the key, holding it up in defiance. "You want me to play? Then let's see what this key unlocks." But just as I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me, the echoes of laughter drowning out my thoughts. "Play. Forever. A chill ran down my spine as the light flickered, and I knew I was far from safe. I was about to discover just how deep the darkness went. I felt trapped in that moment as the heavy door sealed behind me. The laughter faded into an unsettling silence, and I glared at the ring of dolls. Their eyes seemed to shimmer in the dim light. I took a hesitant step into the room, the dust motes dancing around me like tiny phantoms. The larger doll on the chair seemed to draw me closer. Its dress was elegant, a rainbow of colors that almost looked alive. But something about it felt wrong. A chill crept over me. I instinctively clenched the key tighter, like it was my only connection to sanity. "Why are you all staring?" I whispered, my voice breaking the stillness. The laughter morphed into hushed whispers, tinged with malice. I could almost make out the words. "Join us." They beckoned. I turned, scanning the room for another way out. There had to be an escape. My pulse quickened as I spotted a crooked shelf on one wall lined with even more dolls, smaller ones. Their glassy eyes blinked, and the porcelain seemed to shift. Panic surged within me. I didn't want to be a part of their collection. Then I noticed something beneath the shelf. I crouched down and brushed away the dust, revealing a small, half-buried object. My heart raced as I pulled it free. A broken doll's hand, just laying there, the fingers curled as if reaching. It sent a wave of nausea through me. "Look at what we've lost," I muttered, and the whispers grew louder. Suddenly a sound pierced the air, a soft giggle, feminine but twisted, skittering across the walls. I jumped to my feet, adrenaline kicking in. "Who's there?" I shouted. My voice echoed back, mocking me. In a flash, the light overhead flickered and then went out completely, enveloping me in darkness. My breath caught in my throat. I was alone, truly alone. The room was now filled with the sound of my frantic heartbeat, beating in rhythm to the whispers that had now turned into a low drone. I fumbled in the dark, desperately looking for the door. Every corner of the room felt like it was closing in on me. I turned, swinging my arms, hitting something soft but cold. It was a doll, tumbling down from the shelf, its voice activating like a switch. "Play with us!" "No! Get away!" I yelled frantically, shoving the doll aside as I stumbled backward. The droning laughter pierced through me, relentless and consuming. Then something caught my eye, a glimmer near another corner. I edged forward until I found what it was. A mirror, dusty and cracked, reflecting not only my image but something else behind me. I froze. In the reflection, I saw a shadow, a figure standing eerily still, watching me. My heart raced. "Who are you?" I whispered. It felt as if I wouldn't be able to breathe any longer. Just then, the mirror began to tremble, as if something was trying to push through. Suddenly the lights flickered back to life, and in an instant, the figure was gone. I was left staring at myself, wide-eyed and terrified, but the room was still silent. I felt the key slip from my fingers, clattering on the floor. I had to act fast. My instinct screamed for me to escape, but the laughter returned, louder and more chaotic than before. "Play with us. Forever." That's when I realized something crucial. The dolls weren't just toys. They were guardians of this place, and I was intruding. A surge of dread washed over me, knowing I needed to find a way out before they decided to keep me as one of their own. With renewed determination, I turned back toward the door, hoping desperately it would let me out. But it was locked. I yanked at the doorknob, panic coursing through me as it refused to budge. The room felt smaller, the dolls closing in on me. Their whispers began to meld into a chorus, echoing in my ears. "Play with us. Stay with us." I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing it all away. When I opened them, I saw the mirror again. It seemed to pulse with an energy all its own. I stepped closer, drawn by an invisible force. My reflection stared back, but now there was a flicker of movement, a small hand, pale and delicate, darting past the edge of the mirror. "I need to get out," I shouted, my voice echoing back with a sense of despair. Then the sound of wood creaking broke through the laughter. I whirled around, and my heart dropped. One of the smaller dolls from the shelf had shifted, tilting its head to face me. "Help us," it said, its voice a haunting melody that twisted my insides. There was something in its gaze, a plea wrapped in malice. I staggered backward, feeling the cool, hard edge of the shelf. Frantically, I scanned the rest of the room. My eyes fell on a window, old and dusty, but it appeared to be an option. I rushed towards it, praying it wasn't painted shut. I grabbed the frame and pulled, but it wouldn't move. I was trapped. In that moment of helplessness, I heard rustling behind me. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. More dolls shifted from their places, animated by something unseen. The larger doll at the center, dressed so elegantly, seemed to rise from its chair and slowly glide toward me. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, the voice chillingly melodic. "You can't leave. You must play." My heart raced. I couldn't keep standing there. I dashed back toward the mirror, desperate to escape. As I got closer, I caught another glimpse of that pale hand, this time clawing at the glass. My breath hitched. It looked so familiar, like something I had lost. "Let me out!" I screamed, pounding on the glass, but it was solid, unyielding. And yet, as I struck it, a fracture spiderwebbed across the surface. The dolls continued to advance, their laughter unrelenting. "Join us!" That's when I saw it, a glint of silver beneath the mirror's edge. A key? Could it really be? I knelt down, fumbling in the dust and debris. My fingers brushed against the cool metal. Relief flooded me as I grasped the key tightly, but then fear hit me once more. What if it belonged to the door? I stood, turning back toward the door, my heartbeat in my ears. But the dolls were closer now. One had advanced to right in front of me, its glassy eyes filled with something darker than mere malice. "My collection is incomplete," it hissed, and I felt a surge of dread as I realized they weren't just watching. They wanted me. Before I could react, the room plunged into darkness again, the laughter drowning out my thoughts. I clutched the key, feeling its sharp edges against my palm. I had to try it. I had to escape. But what if I unlocked the door, and something worse awaited me on the other side? The laughter stopped suddenly. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I took a breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Then a cold breath washed over me. Someone was behind me. I froze, that icy breath swirling around my neck. I didn't dare turn around. My heart pounded as I held my breath, waiting for something, anything to happen. The dolls were still, but their eyes were unblinking, filled with an unsettling curiosity. Then I heard it again, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. "Play with us." Another cold flash of air brushed my ear. It felt like fingers trailing along my skin. I shivered and instinct took over. I spun around, key still clutched tight in my hand. Nothing. I scanned the shadows, every inch of that small room now overflowing with dread. No sign of a person or figure, but the darkness felt thicker, constricting. The dolls were back in their places, their expressions unchanged, but I could feel them watching, waiting for something. I took a step back towards the door and gripped the key. My mind raced with questions. What if the key didn't just unlock the door but also set something free? Or worse, what if I unlocked it, and what emerged was worse than the club of dolls surrounding me? A noise to my right made me jump. One of the larger dolls had shifted again, the tiny gears in its limbs creaking. "She has to play," it chimed, and I swore its mouth moved in tandem with the words. "It's all part of the fun." "Fun?" I said, my voice shaky. This isn't fun." But the dolls only looked at me, their faces painted with an eerie calmness that twisted my stomach. I glanced at the window again. An escape route, perhaps, if I could pry it open in time. But the key was heavy in my hand, and I felt the weight of it pulling me, dragging me back to the door. "Just try it." The alluring voice of the elegant doll beckoned, its tone dripping with honeyed malice. "You might find what you've lost." A thought flickered in my mind, pulling me back. I had lost something important. But what? The distant memory danced just out of reach, taunting me as I tried to shove the thought away. I took a shaky breath and stepped closer to the door. Then the room erupted, The dolls lunged forward, their laughter echoing, a cacophony of childlike glee twisted with something sinister. "Join us!" they shrieked. I fumbled with the key, fear spilling over into panic as I heard their tiny feet slap against the floor, charging toward me. They were playing a game, and I was the central piece. Before I knew it, I was at the door, trembling hands stretching toward the knob, the key hovering over the lock. "Let me go!" I shouted, but I knew no one would hear me. My fingers felt numb as the echoes of laughter filled my ears once more. "I want to leave!" What was I doing? I was about to unlock the door, but just as I pressed the key into the lock, the room brightened for a moment. A flash of light erupted from the mirror, illuminating the room and revealing shadows dancing along the walls. And in that instant, I saw it. Behind the mirror, another figure, not a doll but a girl, lost in the glass, her features hauntingly familiar. She looked just like me. I gasped. What did this mean? What was I about to unleash? As I stood there, frozen in place, the laughter turned into wild shrieks, and the dolls' voices mutated into something much darker. "Let her out!" they screamed in unison. It was now or never. I twisted the key in the lock, heart racing, hoping to escape whatever awaited me. The lock clicked, and just as I turned the knob, a force seemed to surge through the room, pushing back against me like a wave. I gasped and yanked the door open, stumbling into the dim hallway beyond. The laughter faded into the distance, replaced by an eerie silence that throbbed in my ears. I didn't look back. Time to run. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I dashed down the hallway, the wooden floor creaking beneath me as I flew past countless rooms. The air felt lighter, the suffocating weight of the dolls no longer pressing upon me. I could almost taste freedom. As I neared the front door, I threw it open. A gust of cold air swept over me, invigorating and terrifying all at once. Stepping outside, I turned back, expecting to see the specters of the dolls surging after me, their grotesque faces frozen in fury. But there was nothing. Just my house, dark and still. The moon hung high, illuminating every shadow, every corner of the yard. Relief washed over me, and I took a deep breath, almost tasting the bitterness of old fear slip away. I walked backward, not wanting to take my eyes off the door. It felt surreal stepping away from that nightmare. I could still hear the laughter in my mind, but now it felt distant, almost like it belonged to someone else. Suddenly a noise broke the silence, the faint tapping that had haunted my nights. It echoed from inside the house, slow and deliberate. Curiosity wrestled with fear in my gut. I wanted to turn and run, but I was compelled to understand the source of that sound, to confront the fragments of my past. I turned and took a few cautious steps towards the door, but before I could reach it, something caught my eye at the edge of the yard. A glimmering shape nestled among the grass, something that looked strikingly familiar. I crouched down, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the doll I had first picked up, lying on its side as if waiting for me. I hesitated. Hadn't I left it behind? A shiver ran down my spine as I recalled the whisper that urged me to join them. I picked up the doll. Its surface felt cool and smooth, but as I held it, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a toy. It was a token of everything I had faced. With a mix of dread and resolve, I returned to my feet. Standing in the moonlight, I glimpsed my reflection in the window, framing the silhouette of my house behind me. I looked different somehow, haunted. I could still feel the weight of the house pressing down on me, anchoring me to the fear it held. The shadow in the reflection shifted, and I knew, whatever I had escaped, it still lingered. The question of whether it was truly over loomed heavily in my mind. I wanted to breathe a sigh of relief, but the tapping resumed, more frantic and desperate now. Was I free? Or was the house simply biding its time, waiting for me to let my guard down? With a final glance at the door, I turned and walked away, determined to put the past behind me. I didn't know what waited for me in the dawn, but I felt the remnants of my fear beginning to fade beneath the promise of a new day. As I drove away from the house, I cast one last look in the rearview mirror. There it stood, silent, still, and seemingly innocent, But deep down, I knew it would always hold its secrets. Somewhere within those walls, the dolls were still whispering. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if those dolls have found another victim, if my house is still waiting patiently in the shadows. But mostly I try not to think about it.